Hello friends, it's me, and today, which is bigger? Let's check out food theory, how restaurants make billions with this trick. Which is bigger? From the food theorist. Together, let's go. Let's go.
You are being served up lies. Restaurants have been using the power of their plates and your brain against you to make you spend more money. But let me tell you, it's the ones you'd least expect that are coming for your wallets. Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory, the
Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory.
show that isn't afraid to say that size matters. Obviously, I'm talking about plate size. You see, the story of how this episode came to be was back at VidCon this year when me, Matt, and the other hosts went out for breakfast together. Matt ordered an acai bowl because he's all healthy now in his retirement or whatever. And when the server brought out our food, Matt's bowl was huge, but there was only one tiny sad excuse for a portion in the middle, which made all of us ask, why did they bring it out in such a huge bowl if they weren't going to fill it? And would Matt have felt
I'm so healthy.
better about it if the food had been served in a smaller bowl? See, this is why we can't have nice things. Even when I'm just trying to have breakfast with friends and Tom, we can't help but theorize. I mean, we all know by—
Come on, don't say that, friends and Tom. What if Tom is not a friend, it's a best friend, close friend?
And now that restaurants will do whatever it takes to trick you into spending more money, especially the fancy ones that charge you an arm and a leg for gold-plated meat.
Which, let's be reminded, gold does not add to the flavor. No, nothing. Gold is tasteless. It makes prestige, the elites, you have your rich, but you know, tastes the same.
Don't get me started. Now, I did some digging to find out more and expose this scam, but what I found was shocking, because it's not just the fancy, schmancy restaurants trying to trick you with their large ones. The biggest ripoff are the places using small plates. Let's start off easy. What's the point? I mean, do plates actually make a difference to the dish itself? If we serve food on a big plate with some space left to spare, or a tiny plate with the food bursting off the edge, that shouldn't change the quality or the taste of the meal itself, right? Well, it shouldn't make a difference, but it absolutely does. Take a look at this diagram. Which circle is bigger, left or right? If you—
I'm gonna say the one on the right is bigger because, you know,
answered anything other than neither, you're wrong. See, this trick of the eye is called the Delboeuf illusion. The additional circle on the left plays a trick on our minds because with it there, our brains see the circle to be smaller than the one on the right, despite—
oh, Delboeuf illusions. The more you know. Thank you.
them being identical in size. It's the space around the circle that leads us to think that it's smaller, and this psychology is used when leaving space on a large plate of food. Our brains are super powerful, and something as simple as the size of a plate will affect our perception of the meal being presented. Our brains use the size of the plate, or rather the space left on the plate, as a reference for whether the portion of food is big or small, or if it'll satisfy our hunger. This illusion—
oh, so it's the plate. Oh, the environment agar ourselves. Oh, so eat agar is all food that we take.
isn't exclusive to meals served on a plate or a bowl though. It's used across all different types of products. Like this example of Kellogg's Special K. A study put this image in front of a test group, and the portion on the left was rated as looking like it had 27% more food than the smaller looking portion on the right. Similarly, in an image of DiGiorno pizza packaging with two different images, the test group rated the left image to look 17% larger than the right. I swear, there's no left-hand bias here. All that changed in both these images was the plate and the bowl size. Less space on the packaging makes your brain think you're getting more food.
But hold on, Santi. What does any of this have to do with fancy restaurants and their giant plates?
You know what? I'm not gonna do that. If anything—
Hey, but hey! I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
the Delboeuf illusion would mean these tiny portions on a large plate would leave the customer feeling ripped off. Are the portions actually teeny tiny, or is it the excessively large plate tricking us again? Well, disembodied voice in my head, this time it's a bit of both. Fine dining restaurants typically use more high quality ingredients than your average eatery, and this kind of quality costs money. To keep ingredients as fresh as possible, deliveries have to be made more frequently, and because these places need the food to arrive more quickly, that express service could cost more as well. Plus, more labor intensive methods are used to produce produce each plate. All this added expense results in the portions needing to be smaller to outweigh the cost of production. So yes, the portions are definitely smaller, but there's something else at play here. See, these establishments are using the psychology of the large empty space to their advantage. They make the smaller portions an experience by focusing more intensely on what little food they do put on the plate. There's a world-renowned chef, Thomas Keller, who actually described this as a culinary law of diminishing returns. And this guy knows what he's talking about. His restaurant, the French Laundry, weird name, chef, just BT dubs, is considered one of the best in the world. Essentially, he says the most compelling part of a dish are the first 3 or 4 bites. First bite, you're getting into it. The second, you start to really discover the rest of the flavors. And by the third and fourth, you have maximum enjoyment. After that, it just kind of wanes away. You've already had the culinary peak. So a visually smaller portion of food encourages customers to savor every bite, meaning the customer is paying closer attention to the quality of the food as they eat it. And chefs use the plate psychology to create a statement that this meal is going to be of high quality and packed with flavor. Unlike a sports bar that serves a basket overflowing with fries that focuses on you believing you're getting as much food as possible for what you pay for, the fancy places thrive on the meal being an experience, not just eating to fill you up. And let's face it, if they're trying to trick you with the big plates and small portions, it's the worst trick in the world. Because if anything, your brain is telling you you're getting less food, not more, for what you're paying. It's not really a ripoff. I mean, $400 meal, you decide if that's a ripoff, but at least they're doing it to your face. So let's focus on the rest of the giant plate and not the portion now. The empty spacing is known as white space in the culinary industry, and it's one of the many techniques used to make our brains believe that what you're about to eat is some serious class A food. Sometimes the space on the plate isn't left to waste at all. You may have seen some photos where plates have a drizzling of sauce around them, or the food is arranged in a very deliberate and delicate way. You might think
it looks very atas, it looks very artistic.
this kind of presentation doesn't make a difference, but you'd be surprised. A study by Oxford psychologist Professor Charles Spence showed how a well-presented dish
so close, Professor Charles Xavier,
actually enhanced the perceived taste of the dish. Even the color of the plate the meal is presented on affected the person's experience. Other techniques, like the use of vibrant colors, garnishes, and the careful placement of each component of the meal, all create the perception of high quality in our minds, and therefore we actually perceive the food as tasting better. If you're still skeptical about whether this makes a difference, try it at home with your friends and family. In a different study, customers were served the exact same meal: sauteed chicken breast, brown rice pilaf, and sauteed green beans on a round white china plate. One night, the dish was served very neatly, like we've been discussing, and the following night, the meal was served in a way that looked more like you might do it at home, just a spoonful of food dumped right on the plate. Customers said they preferred the well-presented dish overall, and when asked to review each component of the dish, those with the well-presented plate praised the taste of each part way more than those who had the average plated meal. So go ahead and try this trick for yourself. You might spend longer in the kitchen carefully presenting your meal, but everyone will believe it tastes better, and you'll be the talk of the town. You're welcome.
Oh, so if you want to impress your husbands, if you want to impress your wife, if you want to impress your boyfriends, if you want to impress your girlfriends, there you go.
Come thank me later. What's important here is our eyes tell us that the food is better more so than our taste buds, even when the meal may be the exact same. And this is where things get interesting, because outside of the top 0.5% of restaurants that truly do try and make the meal an experience, most places are using our own brains against us to create an illusion of a better, more high quality experience, without it actually being a better, more high quality experience. Matt's acai bowl literally tasted better than it was because it got served on a repurposed UFO. It doesn't
repurposed UFO. Look at the bright sides. Matt Pack got UFO.
mean it was necessarily good, but the restaurant did everything it could to fool him into thinking it was, and charging him way more than an acai bowl should cost. Point here being that if you're not at some top tier restaurant that's actively using larger plates to get you to focus on the small portion they painstakingly made so you can enjoy it more, the restaurant is most likely ripping you off. So should we only eat at places that serve their food on smaller plates? Plop your sub down on a paper towel and tell you to get lost? Not exactly, because they are the ones ripping you off the most. You may have been to a trendy place lately and heard the server start off with, "Our concept is all about sharing, so I recommend getting 5 or 6 plates for the table." It may go by a different name in your neck of the woods, but this is called tapas style. It originated in Spain. No one really knows exactly when or how. There's a bunch of different theories, actually. The one that I heard growing up was that old-timey bartenders would give patrons a small plate with food on it to place on top of their drinks in order to keep insects and stuff from falling in. Hence, tapa, or lid/cover in Spanish. Whatever the origins, the trend of serving tapas has exploded on the culinary scene. It seems like a win-win for everybody, because what this means for the restaurants is you buy smaller portions of different dishes, and the big selling point for you is that it typically comes with a lower price point, and you get to try a variety of dishes as opposed to just one entree. Plus, if you think about the Del Buff illusion from earlier, a smaller plate means these dishes make us think that we're getting more food for a lower price. But it's these kind of restaurants that are actually worse than the fancy places, and it all comes down to money. You've probably guessed by now that the use of smaller plates allows restaurants to give you a smaller portion that still appears full, but there's more to it than that. They say it's to reduce food waste, since that's a thing that customers have become more concerned about recently. We actually covered this a couple weeks ago on our expiration dates video, and while that may be true, they do want to reduce food waste, the real reason is cold, hard cash. US restaurants generate an estimated 22 to 33 billion pounds of food waste each year. That's a lot of money just being thrown away, so implementing smaller plates allows portions to be smaller without the customer feeling like there's less on their plate, but also reducing the cost of the product needed. Not only does tapa style appeal to businesses from a food waste standpoint, but it also appears more beneficial to the consumer. With these types of establishments, you can try a variety of dishes rather than being limited to one meal, and the lower price point of each dish makes you believe you're getting a deal. This is especially the case for millennials, because they typically enjoy experimenting and eating in a more social way, more so than other generations. But this facade of having a good social dining experience actually encourages customers to buy more food rather than buying the one dish and being satisfied. Like I mentioned, servers love to recommend a number of dishes depending on the size of your party, and because you might not be sure how much you'll get on a dish, you typically buy more than you need. These kinds of restaurants that have taken up the tapa style have claimed customers typically end up with a significantly bigger tab than a large main course approach. Part of this is a small plate of a dish is likely to get a reorder due to the perceived affordability. Customers will typically order up to 3 or more dishes at a time, and all those plates stack up. And don't get me wrong, although ordering loads of tiny dishes makes me feel like I'm Goku, the low price
Dragon Ball!
point of each dish all begins to add up. On average, these restaurants have customers spending roughly between $25 and $50 per person, which is significant compared to the average spend in the US for eating out, which is $11 to $20. So it's not just big plates that trick the customer to spend more money. Small plates make us think we're getting more bang for our buck, but the reality is the businesses are the ones winning. And the reason these kinds of places are increasing in popularity is because it's working against shrinkflation. Shrinkflation is a term explaining the smaller food portions at restaurants as a result of the increase in the cost of living. Basically, the cost of something may stay the same or even go up, but the amount of food you're getting is decreasing. Like Domino's reducing their 10-piece of boneless wings to 8, or Chipotle not giving you that full scoop.
But having said that, you do recognize that this sort of things is not really that common in Singapore, right? I'm so sorry, but we have 杂菜饭. Yeah.
Of guac that you ordered. Now, that might work for these fast
菜粉
food places that don't have a plate to create a reference of size, but dine-in restaurants are a different story. All their food is typically served on a plate, and if suddenly you order your favorite dish and it comes out on the same plate as always, but it takes up less room, you'll notice. Instead, they use smaller dishes so they can serve out smaller portions while we still believe them to be full. They might use the excuse that having multiple small dishes is creating a vibe and experience, but in reality, these places are not just saving money by making less food, they're increasing sales by adopting this small plate method. The
more you know.
Ordering and reordering more plates every time you sit down to eat without necessarily getting more full. So is the lesson to never eat out again? Fancy places and supposedly more affordable restaurants are all forcing you to spend more money with mind games, so why not just sit at home and eat microwaved Hot Pockets forever? Now, see, what we've learned is that looks can be deceiving. Our eyes may not be the best judge of what's the right amount of food. So next time you do eat out, don't be fooled by the overflowing tiny plate of fries thinking you're getting a good deal. And when
knowledge is power, now that you know what they're up to.
recommended to order 7 dishes for a party of 2, you might be better off literally trusting your gut and just ordering 1 or 2 at a time. Your wallet will be thanking you as well because you won't keep reordering and overspending just because of some simple optical illusions. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit. And hey, if you like this episode and want to see more, make sure to click the link on the screen now. And as always, I'll see you next week.
Well, thank you so much, hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video. But hey, that's just a theory, a food theory. Bon appetit. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you so much, subscribe.